God has designed work that it brings great fulfillment into our lives. In fact, work is so important to man that if you take meaningful work away, man tends to self-destruct. 3 things we learn about God's design of work here in Genesis. First of all, I want you to see that work is divine. Look at Genesis 1:1, opening line of the Bible, right? In the beginning, God created, there's a working verb there. God created the heavens and the earth. Isn't it interesting that in the very opening line of the Bible, we're talking about work that is being done? Now, we tend to think about work as purely a human thing. You might be prone to think that God somehow is sort of above work or disconnected from work or even immune to work. But God from the very beginning has chosen to participate in work. God himself works, and therefore work is a divine thing. From the opening sentence of the Bible, we see that God is at work and he is the first worker. Now, we call the manner in which God created everything, from the Latin, we call it ex nihilo, meaning out of nothing, God created everything. So here's what's really cool. When you think about God's work ex nihilo, not only did God work to create, but he created work. He created this work, this concept of work in his own actions. Work is God's idea, and he models what work looks like. Work is his thing. Therefore, our work begins to find meaning when we begin to see our work as a part of God's larger work in history and in the world. Here's why. Part of what it means to be made in God's image is that we were made to work. Look with me further down in Genesis 1. Pick it up with me in verse 26. So this is the Imago Dei, right? Verse 26, then God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. So there we have it. We're created in the image of God. Now, what does that mean? Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heavens, over the livestock, over all the earth and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female. He created them. And God blessed them. And God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and the birds of the heavens and every living thing that moves on the earth. And God said, behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit, and you will have them for food. And to every beast of the earth and every bird of the heavens and everything that creeps on the earth and everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food. And it was so. God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And so we're created in the image of God. What does that mean? That God is a creator, he's a sustainer, he's a provider, he's a ruler, he has dominion. And because we're created in his image, we're meant to carry out the same types of work, the same type of tending and cultivating and dominion sharing work. God gave us this divine assignment. So all of our work should in some way bear witness to who he is. We live out the image of God every day in our workplace. Our job is more than a job. It's a divine calling. And all work fundamentally is finding a way to express our calling as humans to build upon and steward what God has made, which brings glory to him. So that's the first thing I want you to see in the design of work, that work is divine. Secondly, I want you to see that work is good. Now, there's this repeated phrase over and over and over in the creation narrative in Genesis chapter 1. You see it, for example, look in verse 10. I want you to see that, secondly, work is good. Verse 10, it says, God called the dry land earth, and the waters that were gathered together, he called the seas, and God saw that it was what? It was good. And then he repeats that line in verse 12, it was good. In verse 18, It was good in verse 21. It was good in verse 25. It was good over and over and over. God proclaimed his work to be good. That word good in the Hebrew is the word tov. It means pleasant or beneficial. So God looks at the things that he's worked and he's created, and he said, this is good, or this is beneficial, or this is bountiful. This begins to change our tune as we think about work, because in our culture, we tend to treat work as something to be avoided or something to be endured and sort of put up with. And we treat leisure as the thing to be pursued the most. That's why we love Friday night and Saturday, and we don't like Monday morning very much, right? We're kind of ingrained to think that work is sort of something to avoid. No. God, he works, and then he says, this is good. This is good. We might tend to think that work was only a part of punishment for the fall. And we're going to get to that in a moment, the fall. But I want you to see, before we get to the fall, that work was given to us, work was instituted, work was designed and put forth as a good thing before sin entered the picture. So work is not just punishment for the fall. We're going to get to that. But work fundamentally, in the way that God designed it, in the way that he created it in the garden and gave the divine assignment to Adam and Eve, it was good. Work is a part of God's design for paradise. Don't miss that. Work is a part of what God created, and he stepped back every step of the way and said, man, this is good. This is good. Work is good. Thirdly, I want you to see, as we think about, God's design for work, is that work brings satisfaction. Turn over to Genesis chapter 2. Look at verses 1-3 with me. Work brings satisfaction. Thus, the heavens and the earth were finished. So God finishes his work of creation, all the host of them. And on the seventh day, God finished his work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. And so God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it God rested from all his work that he had done in creation. So God, he creates. 6 days is the pattern. And on the seventh day, he rests and he enjoys the fruit of his work. When God finished his work, he displayed deep satisfaction. He enjoyed the fruit of his labor and rested and reflected. And we're introduced in Genesis 2 to a healthy work-life balance. We're given the formula, the successful key for a work life that is productive and healthy and accomplishes much in the world for the betterment of society, but yet gives glory to God and rests and enjoys and is satisfied in the labor. The formula is 6 and 1. 6 days to work, 1 day to rest. 6 days to work, 1 day to rest. It's what we call the Sabbath day. Do you know in the Hebrew what the word Sabbath means? It literally means stop. It's like the pause button on the TV. It means stop, right? So it's work, stop. That's the rhythm. That we're meant to stop and enjoy and reflect and sort of sit in the satisfaction of work. So a healthy work-life balance includes rest and Sabbath, but God has designed work that it brings great fulfillment into our lives. In fact, work is so important to man that if you take meaningful work away, man tends to self-destruct. Look around you. You see it all around you. Where unemployment is very, very high, guess what is also high? Crime, right? Why? We don't do well as a human race when we're not at task, when there's not a cause to put our hands towards. We need work. We're meant to work, and there's satisfaction in work. I'll tell you, so Kelly and I, we have this kind of running argument. And the argument is over who gets to mow the grass, right? And we have like an old school push lawnmower. It's not even the kind that turns the wheels for you. You have to actually push it, right? And we argue over who gets to mow the grass. So I'll jump, up out of the pool and say, hey, I'm going to go mow some grass. And she's like, oh, no, you're not. I'm going to mow the grass, right? Because we both want those steps. We want the exercise. But more than that, you know why we argue over mowing the grass? Because when you mow the grass and you get done, I just did it yesterday, and then I sit back down with something nice and cool to drink, and I look out at the yard and I'm like, wow, this feels good. There's satisfaction in looking at a job well done. There's satisfaction in realizing that through the sweat and through the effort, it brings fulfillment. And we should look at all of our work that way, right? Not just mowing the grass. Now, we can take that too far, the satisfaction of work, and work can become an idol. Been there and done that, right? That's no good. Work doesn't need to become an idol. Work doesn't need to replace God and the priority of caring for our family, but work in the right rhythm and balance is a satisfying thing. So that's God's design of work. Work is divine. Work is good. Work is satisfying.